If working hard was all it took to get rich, the hardest working countries on Earth would be the richest. Instead, some places have been stuck at low incomes for over 30 years, even after getting billions in foreign aid and loans. So what's going on? Is it bad luck, bad leaders, or is the global game itself rigged in a way that keeps some countries on level 1? Permanently? Today we're going to talk about something economists call the poverty trap, and why it's so much harder to escape than most people think. Welcome to Sketch Figures, where we sketch money and the world economy in plain English. In this episode, we're unpacking the poverty trap, why poor countries can't escape, even with aid. We'll walk through what a poverty trap actually is, how the debt trap and brain drain make it worse, why foreign aid helps in some ways but doesn't magically fix the system, and what does seem to work better in the real world. If you enjoy clear, no-drama explainers about money and power, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future breakdowns. And stick around to the end. I'll give you one simple question you can use to test if any end poverty plan is serious or just marketing. Let's start simple. A poverty trap is a self-reinforcing cycle where being poor today makes you more likely to be poor tomorrow. Economists describe it as poverty begets poverty. You're stuck in a loop that's hard to escape without a big push. At the country level, it often looks like this. Incomes are low. People can't save much. Low savings. Little investment in factories, roads, schools, weak infrastructure and education. Productivity stays low. Productivity stays low. Incomes stay low. It's like trying to climb out of a hole with a broken ladder. The World Bank has looked at this and found something worrying. 22 countries, home to about 7% of the world's population, have not managed to escape low-income status for more than 3 decades. Their average income per person has grown at only about 0.26% per year since the late 1980s. These countries now host around a third of the world's extreme poor, and that share is rising. So the idea of a trap isn't just theory. For at least part of the world, it looks very real. But here's the wrinkle. Other research finds that many poor countries have escaped poverty with sustained growth, which suggests that not every poor country is locked into a strict, no-way-out trap. The evidence for poverty traps is stronger in some specific contexts, like conflict-affected states or places with major geographic disadvantages, than as a universal rule. Think of poverty traps less like a magical curse and more like a nasty combination of obstacles, weak institutions, high transport and energy costs, tiny tax base, high population growth, vulnerability to shocks like pandemics, war, or climate disasters. That combo can make every step forward feel like walking up a down escalator. Poverty traps are about systems, not laziness. In some countries, the starting position is so rough that just grow is like telling someone stuck in quicksand to just run faster. Now layer on debt. Imagine you're broke and someone offers you a credit card with a high interest rate. It helps today, but tomorrow, more of your paycheck goes to repayments instead of food, school, or repairs. Do that at country scale, and you get the debt trap. During and after COVID, many low and middle-income countries borrowed heavily just to stay afloat. By the end of 2023, their external debt, money owed to foreign lenders, reached about $8.8 trillion, a record high. In 2022, these countries paid a record $443.5 billion just to service their public external debt, interest plus principal. That's money not going to schools, hospitals, or climate resilience. For the poorest countries, the ones eligible for the World Bank's soft loans, debt has grown even faster. Their external debt rose to about $1.1 trillion, up nearly 18% since 2020. The World Bank estimates that in 2023, low-income countries spent around 7.5% of their entire government budgets on debt service, and interest alone ate up roughly 20% of government revenue, more than they spent on health and education combined. That's the trap. Debt service goes up. Budgets for health, education, and infrastructure go down. Growth stays low. Tax revenue stays low. Countries need more debt just to keep the lights on. On top of that, higher global interest rates and fears of default push borrowing costs up even more. A UN report notes that in 2023, developing countries paid about $487 billion just on external public debt service, with half of them using at least 6.5% of export earnings just to pay creditors. Now, to be fair, debt isn't automatically bad. Rich countries borrow too. Debt can fund highways, power grids, and schools that make future growth possible. There's a whole joint IMF World Bank framework to help low-income countries figure out how much debt is sustainable without blowing up their future. The problem is when loans are used for prestige projects that don't boost productivity. Corruption leaks big chunks of the money, or shocks like war, floods, and pandemics hit after countries already loaded up on debt. In a poverty trap, debt can become like trying to swim with a backpack full of bricks. It keeps you from drowning today, but makes it harder to reach the shore tomorrow. Next piece of the puzzle: brains leaving the building. Brain drain just means skilled people leaving poorer countries to live and work in richer ones. Doctors, nurses, engineers, teachers, programmers, academics. If you're a young doctor in a hospital where equipment is broken, drugs are missing, and your salary barely covers rent, and you get an offer from a hospital abroad that pays 5 times, that's not a hard decision. For the home country, though, this can be brutal. Fewer doctors, worse health system, more people sick and less productive, fewer engineers and managers, weaker firms and slower innovation, fewer experienced civil servants, weaker government capacity. In other words, the people you need most to build the future are the people with the best exit options. But here's where it gets messy and interesting. Migrants often send money home, remittances. That's just a fancy word for money workers abroad send back to their families. In 2023, remittances to low and middle-income countries reached about $656 billion. More than foreign direct investment and official development aid combined, according to the World Bank. A World Bank study finds that more educated migrants actually tend to remit more, meaning that while brain drain takes skills away, it can bring in more cash and investment. So which effect wins? In some small countries, losing even a few hundred doctors or teachers is a huge hit. In others, migrants create diaspora networks that bring money, tourism, trade links, and even political pressure for reform back home. Brain drain is not just smart people leave, end of story. It's more like skills leave, money and connections return. And whether a country escapes the trap depends on whether it can turn that global diaspora into a development superpower instead of a permanent leak. If you're finding this breakdown useful so far, tap like and subscribe. It helps more people find videos that go past the just blame corruption explanation. Okay, at this point, you might be thinking, wait, we've spent trillions on aid over the decades. Why didn't that just lift countries out of the trap? For a long time, a popular story in development economics was the big push idea. Poor countries are stuck because they can't afford the initial investment in roads, power, schools, and healthcare. So rich countries should provide a huge burst of aid to push them over the hump. Economist Jeffrey Sachs, for example, argued that carefully targeted aid, like the Millennium Villages project launched in 2005, could show how an integrated package of interventions could end extreme rural poverty. Results? Mixed. Evaluations of projects like Millennium Villages found improvements in things like agricultural yields, nutrition, malaria control, but weaker evidence that income stayed higher after the project money stopped, and serious questions about how easily this model could be scaled across whole countries. Zooming out to aid in general, meta-analyses of foreign aid and growth usually find a small positive, but not huge effect on economic growth overall. At the project level, studies suggest that over 75% of aid projects meet their immediate objectives, but making the benefits last is hard. So aid is not useless, but it's not a magic elevator either. Critics like economist William Easterly in The White Man's Burden argue that big, top-down aid plans often fail because they're designed by planners, far away, rather than searchers on the ground who experiment and adapt. On the flip side, there's strong evidence that targeted aid works very well in specific areas. Vaccines, bed nets, and basic health programs have saved millions of lives. Unconditional cash transfers, literally just giving money to poor households, have a large evidence base showing improvements in income, food security, and some health and education outcomes, especially in the short to medium term. But recent research also shows that some hoped-for long-term effects, for example on children's brain development, may be smaller or fade over time, reminding us that cash alone doesn't fix broken systems. Here's the behavioral twist from Thaler and Sunstein's nudge. Humans, including politicians and donors, have present bias. We love quick, visible wins. Building a shiny new school with a plaque and a ribbon cutting looks great. Quietly fixing how teachers are trained, paid, and monitored is less glamorous, even if it matters more. Aid can treat symptoms and sometimes help people a lot. But if the underlying system is still trapped by debt, weak institutions, and conflict, aid by itself is like pushing a broken car without fixing the engine. So if just work harder, just give more aid, and just stop being corrupt aren't full answers. What has seemed to help countries escape the poverty trap? There's obviously no single recipe, but based on what we see from development research and real-world examples, a few patterns keep showing up. 1. Fixing the basics of institutions. Countries that climb out of poverty tend to gradually build more reliable courts and property rights, less arbitrary government, fewer sudden policy changes, and some ability to collect taxes fairly and actually deliver public services. This doesn't mean they become perfect overnight. It just means the rules of the game get slightly less chaotic, so people and businesses feel safe investing in the future. 2. Investing in people, education, and health. Spending on primary health care and basic education, especially for girls, often delivers huge long-term returns. Healthier, better educated workers are more productive, and they're better able to adapt to new technologies and global markets. This is where targeted aid can shine. Funding vaccination campaigns, nutrition programs, and school infrastructure, if governments keep those systems running once the aid money stops. 3. Cutting the cost of doing business. For many poor countries, just moving goods is extremely expensive. Bad roads, unreliable electricity, clogged ports. A poverty trap can be geographic. You're landlocked, far from big markets, with bad infrastructure. Investments in roads that connect farmers to cities, ports and customs that actually work, stable electricity, can change the math from it's impossible to compete to maybe we can sell this abroad. 4. Smarter debt and real restructuring. Right now, nearly half of low-income countries are either in debt distress or at high risk, with average government debt around 72% of GDP as of 2023. When debt levels are that high, the priority often becomes restructuring, negotiating lower payments or longer maturities, so governments can spend again on health, education, and growth, rather than just interest to creditors. A UN and IMF World Bank push to rethink the debt sustainability framework is partly about this problem. 5. Letting people and money move more freely. We've already seen how migration and remittances bring in more money than official aid in many countries. Encouraging safe migration pathways, financial systems that make transfers cheap, and policies that welcome diaspora investment can turn brain drain into brain circulation. 6. Behavioral design and local ownership. Drawing from behavioral finance, think Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money and Thaler and Sunstein's Nudge. Successful programs often make good choices. The default, e.g., automatic school enrollment, vaccination reminders, reduce friction, simple paperwork, mobile money instead of long queues, and involve communities in deciding what to fund, so projects don't become abandoned white elephants. For you as an individual, when you donate, look for organizations that are evidence-driven and locally led, not just those with the flashiest campaigns. When you hear big promises, This initiative will end poverty by 2030. Ask, does it tackle systems, debt, institutions, infrastructure? Does it build local capacity, not just import solutions? Is there independent evidence it works? Escaping the poverty trap isn't about one silver bullet. It's about slowly changing the rules, incentives, and infrastructure so that effort actually pays off instead of being eaten by debt, distance, and dysfunction. The poverty trap shows how weak systems, debt, and lost talent can keep countries poor even when money and aid are flowing. Quick rewind. After decades of slow growth, some countries remain stuck in low-income status, despite billions in loans and aid. Debt service, brain drain, and conflict keep draining their capacity. And aid works best when it supports long-term institutions instead of quick, shiny fixes. Today, this means poverty traps are about systems, not individual effort. So simplistic, they should just work harder takes miss the point. Look for structural levers. When you donate, vote, or talk about policy, focus on health, education, institutions, and smart debt relief, not just one-off projects. Think in long time frames. Real development is slow and uneven. Staying curious and skeptical of magic fixes is one of the most helpful mindsets you can have. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe to Sketch Figures and hit the bell so you don't miss future explainers on how money, power, and policy actually work in the real world. And if you haven't already, check out our last video on the complete history of coffee and how this little bean built empires. This video is for education only and isn't financial advice.